luckily for us, we went through a dress rehearsal. So this is the first time I'm talking about this area of the tradition. So the dress rehearsal was actually very helpful. I spoke to the girls because what I'm going to be speaking about is slightly different from what you read in the texts and so on. This is a kind of a, I would say, uh, reconnecting with the Shilpa Shastras at one level, and also the inner yoga unfolding that I have been through in my own life. So it's partially related to the chakras also. All right. But please bear with me. It's still very experimental. I don't know whether I would like to say this is it. I think there's a lot more work that has to be done with it. So, as all of you know, the Navaratri has three distinct versions. One is, of course, the North India one in Central India, where it's the confrontation between Rama and Ravana. That is the whole Ravana Samhara, the visuals that they enact, and so on. Then the second one is that you divide it into three days, and the first three is considered to be Durga, second three is Mahalakshmi, and the third three is supposed to be Mahasaraswati. Those of you who know the story line that is part of your Devi Mahatmyam, there is a very interesting version of the Devi Mahatmyam, which I will tell you before we go into the details. This is a version that is given by my teacher, who is a tantric in Kerala. He says that the whole Devi Mahatmyam is about the awakening of the individual. And there is a theory that all human beings, all creation is actually Prakriti, which means everybody is female. There is no creation that is masculine. There is only one male, and that is Purusha. Everything else is a manifestation of Prakriti. So all of us are feminine. The feminine in our consciousness, in our intent, in our location in the larger cosmic state. So the individual who is ready to walk the spiritual path, whom we'll call a sadhaka. This sadhaka, when he or she is ready, let's just say she, because we're all she, when she is ready to awaken to the spiritual path, the whole story starts with the Shumbha and Madhu and Kaitabha. So Madhu and Kaitabha are actually coming out of the years of Mahavishnu. In this, Mahavishnu is the Purusha. He is in a state of Yoga Nidra. And when Brahma is attacked by Madhu and Kaitabha, who are actually the impurities coming out of the years of Mahavishnu. So in this, we have to look at it as lot of things that each of us is holding, which doesn't belong to us from our own past, particularly from our childhood. Many things which have been pushed on to us because of the context, which doesn't belong to us. And we were voiceless at that time, vulnerable and voiceless, to prevent it from entering into us. And then it became a part of us, and we didn't know that it didn't belong to us. So these are impurities. And they are actually the heard sound, which is held within us. So when this asuric tendency of the past catches up, then the only way is to awaken Mahamaya or Mahakali. She is the first. Sometimes you can also call her Durga. She has to awaken, and she's a very tough mother. She says to you, get up and start walking. Enough of your sleep. So you're coming out of not a sattva nidra, but you're coming out of a tamasa nidra. And then after you have awakened, you look around and say, hey, how am I going to support myself? because I have now decided to walk the spiritual path, which means I'm not concerned about income, my profession, nothing. I'm only concerned about finding that space which I was born for. And then apparently Mahalakshmi comes to you. She says, here is the what you need for walking this path. She says to you, that will be taken care of.
Power on.
And Maha Saraswati also comes to you and says, this is the knowledge you need.
Akka, you're on mute.
Oh, once again, I was muted. Okay. So the Mahalakshmi and Mahasaraswati, what do they actually stand for? Stands for the wherewithal that you need. And this wherewithal, which is your professional need, your personal need, your home, your partner, this, that, and the other, and the knowledge that you need. You can't just walk into the spiritual path with knowing nothing. You start, of course, being an empty vessel, but you also need some knowledge. Apparently, both these mothers who want you to walk this path reach out to you through the teachers, through the job, through the task, through the wherewithal, so that you can walk this path. And then you're walking on the path, you're refining yourself, you're doing your yogic practice, all the rest of it. But where is it going? What is the final resting place for this? For that, you have to search, because Maheshwari will not come to you. She is also known as Bhavatarini. She is awaiting on the banks of the river of Samsara with a boat, ready to take you across. But you have to make the effort after having awakened, after using the knowledge, after having received the gifts of your wealth and your prosperity, you have to find Maheshwari, and then she will take you across the river of samsara to a state of moksha or release. This is the interpretation of the Devi Mahatmyam that my teacher has given, which I think is a fabulous interpretation, because finally it's not some story out there. It is my journey. Okay. How am I going to take up this journey? So then in the Devi Mahatmyam also the Nava Durga is talked about. And this Nava Durga, once again, we are not just looking at their manifestation, their form, their color, the ayudhas that they are holding. We're not just looking at it. We are saying they actually are located in our own body. Okay. So the first one is Shaila Putri. All of them are actually the various stages in the life of Parvati. So this is the child Parvati, full of wonder, joyous, celebrating, happy like a child. Okay. And in her dreaming self, she's saying, I must attain this wonderful human called Shiva. That's her only desire. She desires him. And this is the child self within us, which is located in our Mooladhara. Okay. And she is the little daughter of Himavan, who is the joy of his life. Right? Then it is said that she is white, totally white, and this white is not color of the skin. We are talking about an innocence, completely untouched. Okay. And then she has three eyes, and the texts are saying they are very contented eyes. She's very happy with herself as she is, as children are usually. And she is wearing red and pink clothes. She has only two arms, and she's seated on a bull. The two arms have a trishula in one, and the other side is a lotus. And you have to understand what does a Trishula mean, because again and again you'll see the Trishula coming in the narrative. Trishulam usually is the three gunas, one version. The second version is that it has three Shakti: Arani, Janani, and Rodayitri. These are supposed to be the three Shaktis that it contains. One of them is for Arani is for creation. Janani is for creation. Arani is for destruction, and Rodayitri is for protection. Okay, so this she has in one hand, and she's holding a lotus on the other. Lotus has many meanings: the white lotus, the pink lotus, and the blue lotus. Invariably, it means wealth, contentment. It also means a state of lack of desire, desirelessness. So this is a child who is without any protection. She's completely open. Okay, the only desire she has is for Shiva. Then you come to Brahmacharini. As the word denotes, this is the ascetic Parvati. Just desiring as a child was not enough. Now she's saying, I'm going to make myself worthy. I shall go into asceticism. So she's supposed to have gone into very, very powerful penance to make herself worthy of Shiva. So she becomes emaciated. She's only wearing a Rudraksha mala. And she's holding one Rudraksha in the hand. And she's also holding a Kamandalu in the other. And Kamandalu usually means the waters, the water of the earth. It also stands for wisdom, because Saraswati also holds the water. So here she is ready for this transition into becoming the bride who is a bride of an ascetic. Okay, Akshamala in one hand and the Kamandalu in the other, which is holding the water of the earth itself, as well as it is the wisdom. And one of the versions is saying it's the wisdom of the arts. So she is actually the mother of the arts. Okay. So next is Chandraghanta. Chandraghanta is a very interesting one. Here she is actually going to be married to Shiva. And she has made herself worthy. She's a lot of power in her own body. She's not that emaciated ascetic. She's now a beautiful young woman, maiden, jewels and everything. And the wedding day arrives. The parents are getting ready to receive the groom. And Lord Shiva, in his true fashion, either because of mischievousness or he wants to be received as he is, decides to come in his Ghora form, which means snakes and matted hair and his body smeared with ashes, surrounded by his deformed Gana army. Each one looking really strange, shouting and drumming, and they come along. Himavan is totally shocked. His wife faints. She says, I can't handle this. The whole town is speechless. So what does a Parvati do? She takes on an equal feminine form of this weird, hair matted, strange looking female. And that is how they get married. And he also says to Shiva, I also want to have the Chandra. So that's why she's called Chandraghanta. He says, okay. And she also has the Pere Chandran on her head. She is very tough looking woman, almost martial, but then her real martial self comes later. But here she's one of those self-confident females. Then they get married. They are together. She is not aware of her divine self. that she is actually Shakti Mata. She doesn't know it as yet. So Shiva actually literally holds the mirror to her and allows her to unfold into her full potential as a Shakti. And so Kushmanda actually means the one who has created the cosmic egg. And one of the stories is that egg came out of her beautiful smile. And this was the beginning of all creation. So here is Kushmanda, excuse me. Sorry, guys. Forgot to switch off my phone. Yeah. So Kushmanda, she is the Devi who is filled with the power of being a Shakti. Okay. And did I tell you how many arms that Chandraghanta had? Chandraghanta has 10 arms, 10 hands. She's holding a Trishula, a Gadai, bow and arrow, lotus, sword, bell, and also doing the Abhaya Hasta. So now we come to Skanda, Kushmanda. She has 8 hands. Chakra, Gada, bow and arrow, lotus, sword, Akshamala, and very interestingly, a honey pot. She is offering sweetness because she is the source of creation now. She has a honey pot as well as a kamandalu, the water of wisdom, as well as the honey, which is considered to be the like milk, like Shiram. Honey is considered to be a complete food, and so it becomes the source for all growth. And she's mounted on a tiger. After this, Skanda is born. And Skanda actually is a huge struggle for Parvati to own him. As the story goes, he's found in the water in that Sharavana Poihai, and he's taken by the 6 ladies, and she has to retrieve him from the possessive hands of the 6 Kanya, Shad Kanya, and they have to give that child to her, and then she becomes very possessive of the child. So Skanda Mata is her mother location. She has only 4 arms here, and lotus, the child, and the Abhaya Hasta. She has 2 lotuses. Okay, she also has an Abhaya Hasta. So here she is that feminine spirit which is somewhere around in our Anahata Chakra, where we are ready to take on the responsibility for other life forms. She's filled with love. She's got a very sweet face, gentle, loving, motherly face. But then this moves on to Katyayani. Again, once more, a very martial aspect of the mother. Katyayani is where all humanity is her children, you see. It's no longer my child. So when all humanity is my child, then she has to defeat and destroy all that is negative. This is about the time when the Mahishasura Mardini, all that happens. So she's ferocious. She's angry. She's also capable of combat. Okay. And Katyayani has, again, all the implements of warfare. The Vajrayudham, the sword, and a cup also. This cup is a very strange one. Okay. Katyayani has 4 hands. The cup is Kalaratri. Sorry. So she has a sword, a shield, a lotus, and a trident. And the shield is a very interesting symbol from the Shilpa Shastras. Shield is protecting that which is not good, protecting yourself from that which is not good. So it is that which is a dharmic weapon of dharma, because you're not attacking, nor are you letting everything come into you. So you are protecting yourself from the negative energies of the world. So this is the only one in which Katyani is the only one who has a shield. So she is in dharmic warfare. Everything that is negative, all that is wrong in the world, she is ready to get rid of. So it will be somewhere in our a little bit in the Anahata, maybe in our Vishuddhi area, where we can use our power to be able to deal with the world outside. And then you move on to Kalaratri. Kalaratri is Kali, Mahakali, because she is the one, after having experienced her capacity to battle and to protect, she now becomes a power of destruction. She just goes out there and raises everything. And because of this, she considered to have become black in color, completely blackened with the rage. And this is where she's holding the cup. And this cup, one of the versions is that is for the taking the blood and the energies of your enemies, to gather it. And Kalaratri, because she has become so deformed and so ugly, Parvati is now feeling very uncomfortable. I have become this. What do I do? So Brahma says to her, go to Manasarovar and bathe in the waters to get back your untouched form. Because through warfare, through anger, through destruction, she has completely lost her innocent form. So she goes back, and that is Mahagauri. She is supposed to have come out of the waters radiant like the moon, filled with light. And this radiant as the moon and filled with light is actually the mother of the home. She's the homemaker. She's the one who protects, who nurtures, who loves, who's compassionate, who cares, who just looking after the children, fostering them, nurturing them, nourishing them. So Mahagauri is the one we reach out to in our hour of need, because she comes to us with so much of love and affection. And she holds a trident. She also holds the Damaru, which is the source of sound. And then she has a pink lotus, lotus of joy. Okay, Ananda. And this person, this Mahagauri, is the one that actually, how do I say it? Not just the homemaker. She's the one who very lovingly, that's the one we reach out to when we need somebody's lap to cuddle into, to be loved. And chances are it is somewhere here and maybe partially here in our forehead, in this area, because this is where you're already coming together in a very wholesome, balanced form. And then finally it is Siddhidatri. She has received the complete Siddhi. She is completely in tune, completely balanced. She's sitting on a lotus. She's not sitting on any animals anymore. Fiery animals like tigers and bulls and all the rest of it. She's sitting on a beautiful lotus, completely at peace. And it is also said that this is the point where she and Shiva actually become one. This is the state of the Ardhanarishwara also, where she becomes the other and the other becomes herself. So here she has 4 hands, chakra, shank. For the first time, she has a shank. And then a trident and a gada. These are the 4 implements in her hands. She's smiling, she's lovely, she's radiant, she's completely at peace with her powers. This is how the whole story goes.